Yeah, I'm graduating high school. I wasn't even, in college yet. So
It's
I
crazy.
really was trying to figure out what to do. And this is why I tell people to have mentors,
Mhm.
especially in high school and college and things like that, because sometimes you will make some life-changing decisions. And so it's good to have a mentor. So what if I had a mentor actually tell me like, hey, you know, the government is different from drug development. I mean, I don't know if I would have changed or anything, but it would have been nice to have understood that.
GovCon has a language of its own acronyms, compliance, acquisition, and when you're new, it can feel a little bit like alphabet soup.
And let's be honest, no one hands you a decoder ring. We are your hosts, Camille, Tuutti, and Amanda Ziadeh, and we are here to get real about how people actually break in, level up, and lead.
Because not everyone grows up dreaming about GovCon. Some people just need help paying for college and somehow end up at the NSA by accident.
Yeah, that happens. Today's guest applied to a student program, had a competing offer from Merck Pharmaceuticals, and a scheduling conflict made the call. Zero intel on what she was walking into.
And along the way, doctors gave her a year to live. She spent part of it homeschooling her first grader from a wheelchair and came out the other side with a very clear sense of what actually matters.
Now she is the vice president of cybersecurity at the MIL Corporation, and she has a lot to say about mentorship, believing in your own ideas, and what she wishes someone had told her at the very start.
Today, we're joined by Dr. Yolanda Reid, Vice President of Cybersecurity at the MIL Corporation. Yolanda, we're so glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited.
Yolanda, you and I talked a few weeks back, and I walked away from that conversation thinking a lot of people needed to hear your story, the resilience, the comeback, all of it. So, if you could find your way back from everything you've been through, that's a really powerful reminder that other people can too. I just want to go back to the start for a second. So, you have spent decades in national security, but the way you got into this work was pretty unusual. You signed some paperwork, walked into the National Security Agency, and only later realized what the work was all about or what you had signed up for. So, take us back there. What did you think that you were walking into?
So they had a program for students. And so the advertisement was that they're going to help pay for college. And you needed to be a US citizen, you needed to have a good GPA. And it was an essay. That's right. There was an essay there that I had to write. And it was the same essay I wrote for colleges. And so I kind of just reprinted it and I just sent in this application. And I thought I'm just walking into like an internship that will help pay for college. I went to an engineering high school and there was other programs that were kind of similar that you would apply to. You would probably they'll do a case study of how you work with other people. Then you get a job in the summer and they pay for college. So it seemed very natural that this is just an employer that was doing the same thing. But when I actually got there, you realized it wasn't the same. It wasn't just any employer. And so at the same time that I applied to NSA, there was a program that I think Merck Pharmaceuticals had that was very similar, and I got that as well. And the reason why I didn't end up taking the pharmaceutical ones was that I couldn't get their program to line up with the school program exactly. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll do this NSA one. So at the time, I had no clue the difference between, pharmaceuticals and national security, but I knew that they'd pay for school.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think at that age I would have either. And when you're graduating or looking for a job, you're just thinking, I need a job.
Yeah, I'm graduating high school. I wasn't even, in college yet. So
It's
I
crazy.
really was trying to figure out what to do. And this is why I tell people to have mentors,
Mhm.
especially in high school and college and things like that, because sometimes you will make some life-changing decisions. And so it's good to have a mentor. So, what if I had a mentor actually telling me, like, hey, you know, the government is different from drug development? I mean, I don't know if I would have changed or anything, but it would have been nice to have understood that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when the reality of the work hit you, along with realizing that you could have used a mentor, what's something else you wish you had known in those first couple of years that would have made your life easier?
Would have made my life easier is that I did get eventually when I joined the agency a mentor, and he told me, to go get your PhD. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I just wanted to do a master's. And, that made sense to me is, after your bachelor's, you get your master's. And then if you get your master's, you might get promoted. And so that made sense. And he's like, well, you can just join a PhD program and then you'll get a master degree along the way. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to do this quick little program and be done. And so what I didn't realize is in technology, you always have to keep learning. And so I end up getting that PhD that I was told that I should have got a long time ago. And it would have been cheaper and faster if I did it before I had kids and before I had a job. And so I will tell people to have the mindset that you're going to always learn. And so do not close those doors if they're open for you.
I'm curious because I hear the younger generation is asking me, like, where do you find a mentor? Like, did this person just appear? Was it somebody that you were drawn to because they had all the experience? Or how did you cultivate that relationship? Because you were very young.
Yeah, so it was 2 years in. I was still an intern at that time. And we had just a technical director, and he was going around looking at our projects that we were working on. And he's like, oh, and he starts talking. And then I mean, I didn't know what mentors were or anything like that. And I was brutally honest at that time. So you asked me a question, I told you the answer. And so that relationship started that way of just giving me very honest feedback. And then like I said, I gave honest feedback back as well, right? Like, no, I don't want to do that. Why would I do that? Uh, It's like, and so that'll take too long. So that's how I first got a mentor. And then I got into another program where they said a mentor was required. And so then I asked an old supervisor, hey, will you be my mentor? And this is when I discovered the concept of commitment issues. And so he's like, what does that entail? What do I have to do? How long do I have to be a mentor? And so he didn't want to commit. And so we had to kind of discover what mentorship was together. And we worked that out very well, that I had another source to be able to ask questions to. It was great, like, to have a mentor when I was in college because you have to pick classes, and I had this vision of where I wanted to go, and so what classes made sense. And so starting off with these two people, they kind of gave me their opinion. And so that was very, very helpful. Um, then, some other person was assigned to me at some point, and they just wanted to boss me around, and I didn't like that. So I ignored that person, right? You're assigned, but you're not helping me, and you're just telling me to do things that not asking me anything about me. And so I saw what I didn't want in a mentor, but it would have been nice to have known the concept of a mentor and to know how to pick one and how to change. Like, if you're assigned one that's not working, it's okay to ask for a new one. And so I think that's really valuable. And there's a lot of places to find them at all ages. And so I encourage people to be mentors. And so sometimes, like, college students are like, oh, I'm too young. And I'm like, well, you can mentor a high schooler, right? Or in every stage of life, you can always mentor someone before you. So think of the communities that you're in. And so, like, if you do a sport, you might find someone that was on the team or their parents that you think is interesting. You can just ask this question of, can I have a conversation with you? And then if you like the conversation, then you can continue to ask, can I have another conversation with you in a month or two? And most people will say yes. And one thing I learned, especially when you ask people about themselves, people like talking about themselves. And so it's a great way to find a mentor if you say, like, I think you're interesting. People like to hear that, right? If you're part of like a, I don't know, like church, people love to mentor at these kind of things. And then most professional environments do have a mentorship program. Like I was part of Women in Cybersecurity, all right, for a very long time. And so there's a mentor program there. And then you go to the website and you'll see like they take applications every year. And then that's a way to also find one. So I think it's easier to find, and now we have AI. We can just ask ChatGPT,
True.
find one,
True.
True.
Yeah.
and it will gladly tell you. And and that's another way to probably find it. So I think it's easier to find mentors now, and I think that we're having the conversation more about mentorship and the value of it. So it's not so foreign, and you don't have to go through what I did.
So we often learn through failure. What's that one mistake you look back and you're like, oh, that was kind of cringe-worthy, but you learned something from it?
Yeah, so because I had no mentorship, right? And I had no filter and I was just an honest person. I know that there was this person I that was a manager and I loved her. Every time she walked into a room, she wore a red suit and red lipstick, and everybody would be like, "Oh my goodness, this person's coming," and they would clean up and make the workplace all nice. And I told her exactly that. I was like, "I love when you come here because everyone starts pretending to work and they do, and they clean up and everyone's happy." And she was so stunned that I told her this. And then after moments of shock, she laughed. And I see her a couple of times a year and we still laugh about it, and I consider her a friend and a mentor as well now. But yeah, I don't recommend that. I think you have a filter. Thankfully, I talked to the right person that was able to laugh about it, but I didn't have the etiquette of like, what do you do in a workplace? And a mentor would have helped me with that, right? Like, hey, the big boss is coming. What should I do? I should talk about the great things we're doing, not like give your honest opinion about, whatever's off the top of your head.
That's an interesting story because you are in a male-dominated field. You're a
Mhm.
woman of color. You're young, and then you said, you have no filter. So I can imagine like how that was a big reality check at some point. Like, oh, like maybe maybe I should be more diplomatic, or did it? Or actually, let's talk about the when it actually served you in a good way.
Yeah.
When did that candidness and that filter approach actually serve you?
So I never really thought when I was younger, like, okay, you're a woman of color. I mean, I figured that out later, like, oh, whoa, I've always just been me. I never thought of myself as different, right? But for other people, I was the only female and I was the only person of color for a very, very long time in the workplace, and people learned from me, right? And so I thought that was really good when I look back, right? The males that I work with, their view of women is from their mother or their wife. Uh, and
Mhm.
then I was someone that was not like their mother or their wife. I was very different. And so then they were able to see, like, huh, you think different. I might just different because I was from the South and I was working in the North. And so I, I, people were kind of vocal of, not in a mean way, they were very vocal of, wow, you're different, or I never really thought about this before. Or I remember my aunt got me a work purse. She's like, you should have a work purse. And it was a fancy work purse. It was Dooney and Burke, I think it was. And I knew, again, knew nothing. but I had this work person. I brought this work person, and some men saw it and they're like, I think my wife would love that. And I'm like,
There you
and
go.
then we start having conversations, and then they got their wife something similar off of QVC because it was super popular then.
Hmm.
And then they came back and was like, thank you, for that. And so it was very helpful. So it was a really good exchange. I will say that I did run into issues later in life, though, right? And so as I became up the ranks and more in executive roles, that became a lot more difficult, right? And so that I needed a lot of mentorship, but I've learned by then to have them and to talk to people and to seek counsel. So it has been different, but I didn't notice it right away.
Well, and as a leader now, do you when there's a younger employee in the office and they come and speak to you, but candidly, similarly how you did when you were younger, do you appreciate that kind of conversation and that
Oh,
approach?
so I will say that I feel like I cannot be surprised. And no matter where I go, I think I got it from my grandfather. Everybody would tell my grandfather things. And so everyone tells me things.
Ah,
And so I know that one time, male dominated role, and you can edit it out if you want to later, but male dominated role atmosphere. I'm a chief. Somebody comes in and says, Yolanda, you know why I've been grumpy? I just figured it out. I went to the doctor and I had my testosterone levels checked and they were too low. And so it explains so much. And now I'm going to be a better husband to my wife because of the mood swings. And I was like, watch your face, Yolanda, right? Someone's really opening up to you about something they wanted to share. And so I always look at that moment as like, okay, nothing could surprise me now. Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So people are quite interesting to share. So how I was just very open, I have got it back later. Yes, I have.
Because there is a lot of talk these days, especially about bringing your whole authentic self to work, which I don't believe in. I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Because professional Camille is different from personal Camille, like home
Yeah.
Camille, right? And I don't think that those, my boss doesn't need to know, my clients or my boss doesn't need to know how I am at home. But how did you learn to kind of balance those two sides as you became more senior?
Yeah. So I had to really think through what do I want to portray? And then what are my values? Became another thing. And so I worked in environments like people, they curse like every 3 words. And how does that make me feel? And I'm not going to judge people and I'm not going to try to correct you because if that's the language you choose, that's the one you choose. But I can control and choose how I want to portray myself. And I tell that to my daughter too. You get to make those choices of how you want to portray yourself. And so think of how you feel when you see these things in your environment, and then you can decide how you want to participate in the environment. And so that took time to try to figure out, right? I want it to be open and honest all the time. And there's definitely people that want to take advantage of that and use it against you for things like promotions or for them to be more popular or whatever like that. But I didn't want that to cut me completely off, right? So I had to strike this balance of how do I want to portray myself? What do I give and what do I not give? In every work environment, I don't give the same way, right? Because the people are very different. And so I adjust accordingly of how do I want to show up in this place.
Well, Yolanda, I learned this about you after reading Camille's profile on you. I understand that by the time you had, built a career and gotten to a certain point, everything got a bit interrupted by a cancer diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, that kind of moment forces a reset that most people don't expect or plan for. So how did that change what mattered to you in your work and how you came back to it?
It changed everything in my entire life. And so I will say I was a real go-getter. I was like on this progression at work. And so I was getting accolades. I was getting promoted very often. I was definitely working with my peers that were a couple of decades older than me. And so I was just on this trajectory. But when this diagnosis came, it didn't change me right away. I was pretty messed up. And meaning, like, I even had like a work restriction put on me by my doctors to heal from cancer. I could only work 8 hours a week. And wouldn't you know, I showed up all 8 hours. And I had a super, super stressful job. And there was a lot that was happening in the world at that time that it was not a good healing environment because it was stressful. And if I didn't get the 8 hour restriction put on me, I would have been there in pain a lot longer. So I didn't have balance at that moment of my life. And so as I lost functionality, meaning that I had surgery and my body couldn't handle it, and my body pretty much collapsed. And I was in a wheelchair and I pretty much became a vegetable. Like my body was a vegetable and my brain was active. That is how I got forced to reprioritize my energy, right? And so I can only use my energy so much time a day. And so what am I going to do? At one point, I did have to take time off. I learned to take time off, and I was like, I had a lot of sick leave. And so I took time off to heal, and I was strongly medicated by all of the damage that happened to me. And so at one point, I was woke 60 to 90 minutes a day. So you really have to prioritize in that 60 to 90 minutes. What am I doing? Because I won't be woke again, right? And so it took all of that for me to start prioritizing. So as I started gaining energy and functionality, what am I putting that energy to? And so what was very important. And then I also had this life sentence given to me that the doctors were only trying to get me to live a year. And so in a year, what do you want to do? Right. And that reprioritizes what you put your energy into as well. So it changed every aspect of my life. I learned who were friends and who were loved ones, right? That who showed up, who didn't know how to show up, and then who was willing to even harm you when you're weak. And so it was very eye-opening. So my friendships and my relationships changed. What I put my energy into. I made a card, a postcard. I just took a little index card and I wrote my priorities on there. And I was like, this is where my energy will go to. And so if I beat this or if I live this year, this is what I'm going to do. And it got me to focus because not only was I very mission driven, I was volunteer driven, I was mom driven, I was school driven, I was doing professor work driven, I was doing a lot of great things. They were all great things. But this whole journey made me focus. And then I don't want to ever go back to where it was. And so I still keep now is more of a mental index card of this is what I focus my energy on, and I reevaluate that.
I know that one of those focuses was spending more time with your daughter. What were the other ones?
If I was to beat it, I was going to travel. I love seeing the world, and so I at 5 years, me and my bestie, we went to Egypt for 2 weeks. And that was the longest vacation I ever had. And I didn't know if I even liked 2 weeks of vacation. I really don't.
You're such an overachiever. That's why you're like, can I be on vacation or not? Am I allowing myself that rest,
I learned about group travel, and then do I like it? No. And all that kind of stuff. Like we were traveling like 20 some people. And we were broken into 2 groups. So it was really 50 people. And I was like, no, I don't like this. And so I learned a lot, but it was just such a great thing. Like I'm going across the world to have a new experience of something ancient that I heard so much about. And is it true what I've learned? And, especially when I was studying with my daughter, She looked at the ancient world, and I'm from Texas, and in Texas, we don't learn about other people's history. We learn about Texas history. So when I was learning this with my daughter, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to go see what I learned with my daughter. And it was a great experience. I got to see what which was true and what wasn't true and what, was fudged and a little bit. And so it was a great experience. So travel was one. Um, I lost my appetite and I went down 89 pounds at one point. So food became a priority. So I wanted to eat.
Yeah.
And I still do or enjoy food. So like trying new foods and new cultures and things like that. That was a priority. Emerging tech is a priority. So, I've always been this engineer and I like where we're going in the future. So I want to put my energy into that. And then education. And so for my daughter and then for myself. And then strangely enough, when I told you that I was so out of balance, when I was a vegetable and I was only woke for so much time, I did decide after I was woke a few hours a day to start homeschooling my daughter. And someone was like, yeah, that sounds completely you. Like nobody else would like fight cancer and decide to like homeschool their kid. And but I did because it gave me an opportunity. Like if I only had a year that I can be able to spend it with my kid. She wouldn't be at school for 8 to 9 hours and I would miss all of that. And people said I was smart, so let's test this out. And so I should be able to teach a first grader, right? And so I did. And then what I didn't ever suspect, but I'm very thankful for, is our relationship was so close because I did. And so I would never trade it for the world.
What a lovely story. I mean, somebody who was a vegetable and then you decide you're going to homeschool your first grader. I mean, that takes not just time but commitment and, a desire to want your daughter to be better.
Yeah, I was able to, I don't know, I got online, I found someone who was in a homeschooling program. I'm like, I know nothing about this. Can you meet me? And this person drove from, I think, Arlington, Virginia. I should go find their email and tell them how I'm doing. But and met me and went through like how you can homeschool and there's a program and it's all made for you. And only thing I got to do, it tells you what to do and I just do it. And that's what I did. And she went to class once a week. And so she got the socialization and then I put her in aftercare for I can rest and she can be able to be amongst school age kids. And so I worked on all of those things and it was great because if I did pass, then she would have memories, right? And she would know what her mom taught her. And so, I wasn't trying to pass. I was trying to fight because I wanted her to say my mom is and not my mom was. And so I'm glad that I'm here, right? And I feel every day still a journey. And I cannot take for granted that I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, it's such a testament to who you are too, because I mean, I think it's always an understandable choice to not be so active or positive or strong during these moments, and choosing that route is so hard. But I mean, it's a true testament to the way you live life. So thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Yolanda, I understand that with a change in perspective, you moved out of government for more flexibility. Tell us what that transition showed you about what you actually need from your work at this stage.
So what I needed was to be able to contribute. It was very important, right? And I am very much into like emerging tech and how can we secure things and how can we do things that's right. And so I needed a place that would honor that. And then they knew that my kid is my priority, right? It was very important. And there's some places that are kid friendly or parent friendly, and there's some that's not. And so I had to just make the choice, like I have to go somewhere that they know that I'm a cheer mom. And so that doesn't mean I'm away from you very much. It's always, most of the time, it's on the weekend, except at the end of the season. But that's important, me to show up and be there for her and put my energy to that. And she has the craziest schedule. And so drop off, pick up, I mean, it's not consistent in any capacity. And so are you okay with that? I will get the work done.
And fast forward to now, you're working at the intersection of cyber, AI, and emerging tech.
Mhm.
So, how do those early lessons and that mid career reset shape how you show up in the work today?
So I hit this point that you start seeing patterns. Or it's like, oh, I remember when we used to do this, or I remember when we stopped doing that, or this won't happen. And so it's very interesting to start bringing history into emerging tech, right? Sometimes people want to shut the door on what happened in the past, but it can help you move in the future and then save money and save time and save costs. And that's how I'm showing up now, is trying to calm fears, saying that we have a lot of lessons learned and a lot of best practices. I say calm down a lot because it will be okay. And then enjoy and embrace the future. Mhm.
And I know we talked about mentorship and wishing that you had that early on in your career.
Mhm.
But when you look back at the whole arc of your career, including the experiences that you've gone through personally, what's one piece of advice that you wish you had at the very beginning?
To believe in myself earlier. I had a lot of ideas. Like I saw things like, oh, this can be better or this can be improved or whatever. And I might have vocalized it and then someone was like, no, or not now, or maybe somewhere else, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay. Then I let it go. And then 10, 15 years later, someone did my idea. And I'm like, what? And that kind of sucked. And I remember RF signals, the signals that go through the air and work with our cell phones and all those kind of things. At one point, people said it was going to be dead. And they're like, RF is dead. Don't worry about that. Just work on the computers. And I was like, I don't think so. Look at us now. I'm like, oh my goodness, why? I didn't believe in that. I have wanted to develop this development program just to make sure that people were aware, and because RF is very different from digital. And so want to make sure that we grow this workforce. And I was like, told, no, we don't need that. We're moving away. It's dying. That's old stuff. And look, so I do wish those ideas that I had, that I knew to just believe in it, or
Mhm.
like if I had that idea and I think it's a good thing, and I made a whole proposal. I knew nothing about proposals, but I still made one, and I made a whole proposal of what it's going to look like and the strategy. And I let the first notes stop me. So
Mm.
what would have happened if I went to someone else, or went to their boss or whatever? It might have been different.
Mhm.
I'm impressed at how you seem to have like such a positive onlook and a real go-getter. Where do you think that comes from? Like, were you ever afraid of doing something early in your career? You seem confident, and that's a big struggle for a lot of young people.
It's
But
true.
would you describe yourself as a confident person, especially when you were young? And what advice do you give to younger people in the workforce who are maybe pursuing a national security or intelligence career, and they kind of feel that they're not there quite yet?
Yeah, I never thought of myself as confident. I mean, I might present that. I never thought about it. I always thought of myself as passionate,
Mhm.
right? And so I'm very passionate. Like this is the right thing. This is the morally and ethically the right thing. So just do the right thing. And so that is very deep in me. When I went to college at Vanderbilt kicked my butt. it was hard. Engineering program, it was hard. And I had to work really hard to understand things that I was never exposed to. So there was a lot of students that their family members were engineers or they were connected in different communities. So some things came a lot more natural to them. And I didn't have that. And so I just had to just work really, really hard. And I was like, I had this thing in me. I didn't use the word if. And so, like, if I finish my degree, now is when. And I think some of that came from my high school. I went to a high school where 100% of us went to college. And let me take that back. Maybe it's 98 because the two people that didn't go to college, they went in the military. But we all transitioned into where you want kids to go. So we went to military, we went to college. And how did we get there? We got there because we had a support system that said that you're smart and that you can do this and you're going to have to fight for it. And then we did. And so we didn't all get to go where we wanted to go, but we all did go somewhere. And I'm very proud of that graduation class. Our teachers never said if at all. And since they never said if, we did. And so I just carried that forward and I still did.
And now you have a PhD in IT.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
She is a
and
doctor.
I know you said earlier in our conversation that you did not want to do a PhD.
I
and
did
you still
not.
did. In IT. So that must have kicked your butt too.
It kicked it in a very different way. Getting my PhD was more staying the course throughout all the challenges. And so the academics, like I knocked all my classes out in a year. Boom. It was just done. I already learned how to be in school. So boom, 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 boom. I mean, you know what to read, you know what not to read, you do the assignment, get an A, boom, you're done. And then we had residencies and I figured that out. And then we had comp exam and they told you it's 3 questions, 20 pages each questions, and then a bunch of references. And it's like, okay, check, check, check. I could do that. And the hard part was dealing with life. Like I was in a PhD program and then I was pregnant and I had a high risk pregnancy. I was in a PhD program when I was navigating my career and going up the ranks. And so how do you balance that? Because you don't want to take time off of work because to do your PhD, because then people will look negatively at that. So how do I balance? Like I'm going to do both. And then I had like an advisor who was diagnosed with cancer. And so at that time, if you lose your advisor, you start over. So I had to start over.
Oh, wow.
And then I was diagnosed with cancer. And so I had to take time off for that. And then I came back. And I mean, and it was just a challenge after challenge. And now I got to retake this class. Or now we changed the program. And it was so many struggles to just get it done. Oh, I got all the way to dissertations and I was assigned a committee member who I did a qualitative studies with numbers and they're a qualitative person. They love interviews. And so where I got accepted by all the other committee members, they gave me 97 things I needed to adjust and they put in their personal opinion on quantitative studies. And I had to go to the school and ask for a new committee member. I did a whole case and to say, like, I can change and do what this person said, but then it would negate everything you taught me at this school. And that's your choice. Do you want me to negate that or do you want me to represent your school the way that you taught us? And so that was many, many months before I got a decision. And then they gave me a new committee member and then I was able to move forward. So it was so many challenges of life more than the academics. If I listened to the person in the first place and did it before, I wouldn't have had those same challenges, but I still learned through all of that. I learned more about me. And then it was like, do I want it or not? And I was like, I want it. Sometimes I did say I didn't want it. And I was like, forget it. Yeah, this is my last fight. I'm just tired, But when it came through with all the bruises, I was like, yeah, I want it. Let me just keep going.
We have gone pretty deep, Yolanda, so let's end with something lighter, which is something we love to do on Rookies to Rockstars. When people hear NSA, they picture, spy movies, car chases, all the things. What's the most boring, unglamorous part of that job that would completely ruin the Hollywood script?
It's none of those things. It really isn't. It's not all of these things. I watch the movies to get excited myself, and it's not. I just think of just a bunch of people that really like tech talking to each other. That's how it goes. Researchers are not traditionally great conversationalists, and so just think more like that. So, and they don't trust anything, and rightfully so. Like, technology is not trustworthy. And so you have a population of people that are really smart and they don't trust. And so there's not a whole lot of bubbly personalities like me walking around. But I will say this, though. I was a lifer. I enjoyed the mission. We stayed there to take care of others. And so, when you save lives, you continue to want to save lives, or at least the people that I was surrounded with. And then when it came down to my life was in jeopardy because of health, it was the best community of human beings ever. And I'll tell this story because it is very significant to me, is that before I knew I had cancer, I was having surgery, and I found out from the surgery it was cancer. And so they said, you're going to need 8 weeks to recover. And I'm like, they don't know me. I need 6 weeks. And so I only scheduled 6 weeks of time off for recovery, even though they told me 8. So that's just who I was. And when I told people the 6 weeks, I never even acknowledged the 8. People that were close to me over a weekend got together and they cooked for my family. And they made enough meals to cover my family for 6 weeks. So the only thing they had to do was take the food out the freezer and warm it up. And that's what they did. Because I was also chef. I cooked every night. And so they did that. And so while it is not glamorous like the movies, and it's not, it is a big nation impact. It keeps us safe. And then the community and the family is incredible.
Well, thank you so much, Yolanda, for sharing your story. I'm more convinced than ever that you're a superwoman. Which even fancier tech and more knowledge of tech, right? And yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story again with us and being so open. And I think that a lot of people listening are going to take something real away from this conversation. So super happy that you were able to make the time and, share your story.
Yeah, this is great. So now I'm going to go fight the garage.
Thanks for listening to Rookies to Rockstars. GovCon doesn't come with a playbook, but these stories might be the next best thing. Follow the show, share it with someone still figuring it out, and connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you.